Hello, everyone. This is Alexandria, also known as Ozma in the Dark, here for this episode of The Fluid Voice, where we are talking with Jessie Gender about the politics of the Federation. I am here with my lovely co-hosts, Christy, Abbey. How are you doing?
I'm gorgeous.
Oh, also, I forgot to mention my own pronouns, she, they.
Oh yeah,
so,
she, her.
You perfect? How are you doing?
am, and doing just fine.
And naturally, saving the best for last. How are you doing, Jessie?
I'm doing good. Just had a job interview right before this and learned that I'm up for another job in a city that I love, in a position that I love. So fingers crossed that all works out. But things are looking up, which is making me feel happy. So
that is actually really good. And just so everyone knows, this is a pre-recorded episode. So we're not.
How about that weather yesterday?
Yeah. I don't even want to give away anything mentioning how. I mean, it's not going to be that far behind when it goes live. But anyways, yeah. So we're not doing live call-ins because we can't. We recorded
because we
this.
hate you.
Well,
No,
I
I'm kidding.
mean, we only hate
There's
half of our
that.
fans. No, and you know, we hate the fans with either even or odd letters in their names. So we're not sure if we can mention which. So we either hate you or love you, depending on the
Depending on whether the
different-
date is even or odd.
Yeah.
I always roll a 1 on my D100.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's how I wish we could do that in real life. Determine how we like somebody just by rolling a d20. Every time I meet somebody, just roll the dice. Like, oh, that's a 2. So I don't
Well, I mean-
despise you, but you're not on my good list.
well, I mean, it's a fantasy that's been all over TikTok.
Really?
Yeah, there's been a lot of people like rolling d20s for everything, like going to the bathroom, roll a d20.
That's
Just let
hilarious.
the Norns decide.
What are these kids doing on that their TikTok? I don't know what's going on that their TikTok, but I don't like it.
Well, I mean, you can determine it. You all the people here are stuck with me as a friend. So
Yeah.
Once I've decided, you've pretty much stuck with you. Don't get rid of me.
Chris, you're just rolling nat 20s all the time. It's perfect.
And I am rolling occasional nat ones, but some nat 20s as well. Anyways, so what is everyone's thoughts, if any, on Star Trek politics? Just a general overview. We'll save Jess Gender for last because she is the expert.
I can rant forever on it.
Well, yeah, I know. I mean, I'm sure you have general thoughts or something you can mention quick, but we'll leave it to the less knowledgeable person. You know what? I'll start. I
You are
mean,
the least. Perfect is pretty hip on Star Trek. So
Is it Star Trek hip? I don't.
yeah, it's hip.
it's
All
hip,
the
it's
cool,
groovy, man.
all the cool kids are doing it with the Picard and the all that. No,
They're going to the disco, right? The disco.
They're going to the disco. I was going there with you. So
anyways,
I'm glad someone got it.
yeah, a lot of times when it comes to the politics of the Federation, it's a weird setup. Like from my memory, it's because there's some militaristic attitudes, but it's not like officially military, and I'm not even sure who runs the Federation, if anyone. I don't know if it's more chaotic. I mean, there's obviously rank orders for Starfleet, but things seem to be relatively complicated. I mean, they don't have money. So, as the clearly communist uh, enterprise, no, it's
Yes, this
yeah,
Comrade Kirk is good, yeah.
yeah. Well, they
Chekhov,
still had to.
Lavelle, rank admiral.
Admiral, there be whales. That's Scott.
Yeah.
Sorry, not. Hang on, what am I doing?
And yeah, obviously they could drink on the job in the original Star Trek. That was the important thing.
Oh yeah, my favorite moment. I'm doing reactions to Star Trek. My favorite moment is in the episode the Enemy Within. The evil Kirk runs into the sick bay and goes, "I need brandy," and he like goes to this drawer that's right there, and apparently McCoy keeps brandy as the closest thing to the door because he just grabs the bottle and starts wigging it. Like, yeah, all right, great. And McCoy's just like, "Yeah, that sounds about right."
Anyways, Christy, what are your
I
thoughts
get it
about?
if I were to say, gonna go with Christy next. I was just gonna say,
Oh,
the Federation is like root beer,
Oh.
Yes, it's what is
cloying and sweet, and you can hardly stand to drink it.
drink it, but if you drink it enough, you start to like it.
Yeah.
It's a reference. It's a
Well-
Deep Space Nine scene.
yeah, no, it did sound like really familiar. Well, as long as you start talking, Perfect. Is that all your general thoughts about the politics of the Federation for like a quick overview?
It's inarguable that capitalism is dead.
Oh yeah,
In the Federation, and it's arguable whether it's communism or socialism and to what degree and so on. But that's all that deciding what they're doing now. It is the thing. It's very egalitarian.
yeah. So, Christy, what are your general thoughts about the politics of Starfleet? The Federation. Sorry,
I have a lot, especially
because
going from the
Starfleet is just
beginning.
because Starfleet's just a part of the Federation. The Federation is more than just Starfleet. But yeah, go on.
I mean, going from the beginning, the ship's botanist wanted to learn how to drive, so they let him drive, which I thought was cool. You know, Sulu was ship's botanist for the first few episodes, so
Yeah.
the in a post-scarcity society, the entire idea of capitalism falls apart, and what then becomes personal machinations and alliances, which is what most of this stuff is based on, and apparently at that, and being able to create shuttles within a day.
I mean,
Wait.
Star Trek Voyager has like what 1,000 shuttles apparently.
But yes, the whole post scarcity is going to collapse communism, and I know that Gene Roddenberry was
Collapse capitalism. I assume you meant
capitalism. Sorry, I know Gene Roddenberry himself was very fond of a book by Damon Knight called "A for Anything," which discussed about the complete collapse of capitalism, and how a communist state in a republic would work as opposed to a communist state in Russia, because that's what people were writing about in the 50s. So,
okay. Oh, go on. Sorry.
no, it's good. I'm good.
Okay. Okay, Jessie, what are your general thoughts about the Federation and the politics of the Federation?
I'll kind of keep it brief in general, because I can I can go all the way down if you need. Ooh, that sounded sexual. But no, I think the thing that people really get caught up on with the Federation, if we're just gonna like really talking about it, is people throw around the word utopian a lot with Star Trek in general, but specifically with the idea of the Federation, and I would push back against that pretty hard. There certainly is,
especially in Deep Space Nine.
Especially in Deep Space Nine, but I think in every single series, I think with maybe the exception of the first couple seasons of Next Generation, where like Gene Roddenberry went full tilt and was like everything, no one can feel any. We've all evolved past this. I mean, I think outside of that, you really see quite often in the Federation that while it holds itself to these ideals of aspiration and betterment and diversity and all those things that we come to think of when we think Star Trek, there are a lot of times, especially when the plots of the episodes really come down to failures of the Federation to live up to that ideal, and then characters like Picard or Kirk or Cisco or whoever you want having to push back against that and saying like, no, this is what our ideals are. I mean, the ones that I think of off the top of my head, for example, are, just to use one specific example to get across my point, is the episode Journey's End, which is the episode where they come in and say, oh, all these Native American colonists, you got to go because we signed a treaty with the Cardassians, which is not at all a good thing for a supposedly accepting diverse federation to be doing. And that's it's a wonderful discussion. The episode itself is meh, but the idea is an interesting one for it to have Picard be the one to push back. So I think what's interesting about the Federation and Star Trek in general, but if we're talking about Federation politics, is that it's a society that has these ideals that it does not always have in practice, but is much better than, let's say, American politics at actually holding itself accountable to those ideals. I think, in my opinion, I think if we're talking about a federation kind of being an extrapolation of American idealism, which it kind of is, Starfleet and Federation is basically America played out, like an ideal America played out on a galactic scale. I would say that the major difference is that the ideals are generally the same, but the Federation is much better at actually trying to hold itself accountable to those ideals. It doesn't always succeed, but at least will try to course correct a lot better than maybe our real world does. So that's sort of my general thoughts on it.
If only someone would do a video on evil admirals, that would really
help. Someone really should get on that.
So that brings me to the first question of many I very quickly wrote up, because I haven't paid much. I don't think about it that much when watching Star Trek. But who actually runs the Federation? How is the because I don't fully understand the major government aspects of the Federation.
Sorry. Red from That 70s Show runs the Federation.
Yeah, he is president in Undiscovered Country? Question mark? I think that's the
yes. And,
oh yeah.
Or the villain from RoboCop, depending on which one you want to reference.
Well, was it RoboCop or RoboCop 2? I forget.
RoboCop, the first one.
Yeah. Okay. And also the RoboCop himself is in actually 2 episodes of Star Trek, both playing racist, xenophobic people. It's kind of funny, actually. He's in an episode of Enterprise playing the xenophobic leader of a terrorist group called Terra Prime, and then he's also the main villain of Star Trek Into Darkness as an admiral who also is a xenophobic asshole. Anyways, back on Admiral. I know, it's crazy. But going back on topic, so it's a little bit weird because again, this is a continuing problem with Star Trek, is that the Federation is very ill-defined in a lot of ways. Starfleet itself in many ways is ill-defined, because even you are like, is it a military, is it not? And it's definitely a military, but it's kind of, and it functions as a military, but doesn't always seem to have the same goals as our military. But getting to politics, I think what's officially canon is there is a president, and then there is a council, which I think we see the council in Star Trek 4. I believe, when they come back from when they come back from saving the whales. So there is a council and there's a president, and generally what the books have expanded it to be is, most notably, I think the one that most focused on it was a book called Star Trek Articles of the Federation by Keith R.A. DeCandido, something like that. Apologies to him if I said his last name wrong. But in that story, we learn that there is a president who is voted on and elected just like us, and then there's a council which is made up of one representative from each member planet in the Federation, and then there's kind of like the UN. There is another council that it like kind of holds greater sway, that is made up of sort of the main planets, which is Earth, Tellar, Vulcan, and Alpha Centauri, and one more, Andoria. Of those five.
Okay.
You forgot
bit-
Andorian. You forgot Andorian.
I know. I'm upset. And there's some interesting politics that come into play with that, because technically on that there's there's Earth and Alpha Centauri, which are both human colonies. So even within that, humanity kind of gets a bigger say, though they make a whole point of like Alpha Centauri doesn't share the same values as Earth, all that. So it's interesting. That's why that book is interesting.
Well,
so many dynamics.
Yeah, and that seems like it would get into a lot of complicated things because, presumably humanity would be biased towards humanity regardless of if it's Earth or Alpha Centauri.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, go on.
No, I'm interrupting, and
Well, no. I was. No, I sometimes I start blurring things. Sometimes I start talking without having actually something to say, and so I'm fine with you.
That's the
If
best
I'm
way to go on YouTube.
You can, on many of the boards online where you can discuss Star Trek, if you say anything about Star Trek being a militaristic organization, that can lead to a complete firefight. And if you, any suggestion that they might have a arm or a branch that could be referred to as Marines is just, it leads to a complete caustic blow up.
They do have Marines in Enterprise, which is technically they show that there's the Makos, which is technically a completely separate thing from Starfleet, and one would presume that got integrated into Starfleet at some point. But,
yeah.
Don't they have like a CIA equivalent?
Not even they have Section 31, which is kind of like these super underground. No one knows about it except everyone knows about it. Black Ops group.
Yeah.
So
one of the things that struck me, and I've been thinking more about it as it's distanced from me, is a lot of the and remember, my Star Trek watching is sporadic at best. I'm working on it. A lot of what is going on with the Federation and a lot of the conflict that they show in there is who counts as human or not. Andorans count as humans. Data doesn't. The various ship's doctors or the AIs that go with the ship. I've had a theory, which is a terrible theory because I was trying to sleep when I thought of it.
The best theories are those theories. What are you talking about?
Because one of the things about noticing about Rios's ship is that all of the AIs are him or an aspect of him, and are not the AIs, the
holograms. Yeah.
The holograms. And I wonder if at some point when the other holograms started saying, "Hey, you know what? We get to be people too," that the captains might have had to say they had to just put part of their, be part of the AI from the ships themselves.
I don't know if, because it's an interesting idea, because you do actually see something similar with Voyager, because with the Doctor on Voyager, he is actually technically, well, he has his own separate program made for a specific function. He is modeled personality-wise off of his creator, Zimmerman, who you see in an episode of Deep Space Nine. He comes on guest, and he's like gonna make the next version of the Doctor based on Bashir in that episode, and he has a very similar personality type to the Doctor over on Voyager, and he clearly based himself on that. So there's precedent for what they do in Picard on that. But that, to me, I mean, getting into like the politics of like whether or not someone should be considered human or a person or sentient, I guess is probably the way they normally phrase it in Star Trek, is like, is the Doctor sentient? I would argue that he is, but he's also based on a real human, and so that's like kind of strange sort of like connection, is like sentience based off of like actual someone existing. But then you also have something completely separate, which is the EMA, the hologram of Moriarty in Next Generation, who also is clearly sentient or approaching sentience, but that's a completely made up fictional character. So you have like two different types of AIs there, and then you have Data, who also himself is his own whole personality. But again, even to a degree, though I don't think then there's Data, actually, now that I'm thinking about it, is kind of an in between of those two, where he is to a degree based on Soon, his creator, that played by the same actor.
Yeah.
But I would argue that Data doesn't have remotely even close to the same personality as Soon. So you have the EMH, who is very close in personality, Data, who is in appearance and based off of his creator, but not at all like him. And then you have
Lore had more personality. It was closer to Tsung in personality, and that's part of the reason why Data was programmed differently, if I recall correctly.
No, you're correct.
Sadly, I didn't see the Lala episode, so I hear it referenced all the time. I just don't know what it is.
That one's it's a depressing episode.
Don't tell me. Yeah, I guess she died. She must have died. It had to, that's the only way it wouldn't work. Yeah, I was thinking of the idea of having to be around your EMHs or your hologram
doppelganger or whatever.
Yeah. And of course there's always the question of whether clones are separate beings or the same being.
And that's what Star Trek Nemesis is all about.
And Thomas Wright, and of course Thomas Wright.
Thomas Wright, or they didn't have a lot of problem there. But the one thing that always bothered me a little bit was that William Riker got a promotion for what he did right up until the moment when they causing the split.
Yeah.
And yet, God, I forget his name. Riker, the other Riker.
Thomas Riker.
Thomas Riker. Thomas Riker didn't get that promotion.
Yeah, and that's actually
when he was brought back in, which he did the exact same thing. Why didn't he get the promotion too?
I mean, that's interesting, and that kind of goes into another element of the politics of the Federation, because what happens with Thomas Riker is he ends up joining the Maquis, as we see in Deep Space Nine, and we actually see that's actually a recurring theme in a lot of cases for the Maquis, is that the Maquis are often really made up of former Starfleet officers who felt that the Federation had failed these people living in the group in the area between the Federation and Cardassia. But also the Maquis is made up of a lot of people who feel like they were personally slighted against Starfleet. Thomas Riker being one of them, Eddington being one of them, a character in Deep Space Nine who joins the Maquis. He was someone who wanted to be in the command track, but ended up being shunted to security, and so he kind of felt disillusioned. And then you also have like Chakotay, Tom Paris on Voyager, were both Maquis. And so, if we're going to circle back around to like politics of the Federation, like there's clearly an element of like, everyone talks again about utopia. Everyone has a spot, everyone has a place, but there are clearly people who, even within this post-scarcity society, feel like they don't have a place and don't agree with the politics of the world that they're in, and become divisioned.
I'm trying to remember, and I might be misremembering an aspect of Voyager. Wasn't one of the Maquis plant, a Federation plant?
Yeah, that was Tuvok was he was pretending to be a Maquis member, but he was Starfleet all the way through. But Tom Paris and Chakotay both were former Starfleet officers who did actually fully defect to the Maquis.
Yeah,
Because
but
Tom Paris is not the guy that he's supposed to be, right?
um
There's that. So,
uh,
they didn't wanna
but
Or
pay
you're
the-
talking about Seska.
yeah, they didn't want to pay the creator.
The
Oh
guy
no,
who
I'm
wrote
talking
that one.
about. Do you mean that there was the Maquis plant who was the Cardassian?
No, I mean that he was in Enterprise. It's the same character.
Oh,
But,
Jeff. Yeah.
yeah, but they didn't want to pay the creator, so.
Anyways, like I was saying, so clearly the Federation though is willing to put in makeshift spies into different organizations, which has its own sort of ethical questions. Like and a lot of times, yeah, there does seem to be a lot of, at the very least with Starfleet, it does seem to be really military heavy. Although I don't know as much about, because Vulcans get talked about the most. Are they as militaristic as Starfleet is?
No, in fact, they actually make a point of saying that Spock. I don't know if this has been retconned at any point, but at least in the original series, and I think they mentioned it after the fact too, but Discovery, I think, kind of blew this up because you see Vulcans in there before. But in the original series, at least, Spock was supposed to be the first Vulcan that joined Starfleet. So it was actually like a big deal. But then I think both Enterprise retconned that because technically T'Pol, I think, becomes like technically an officer in Starfleet, and then in Discovery you see a bunch of like Vulcan admirals and stuff. But basing off of that concept, one would presume that Vulcans never were super militaristic. I mean, again, but now I'm thinking about it because you can kind of make arguments either way, because in Discovery, there's that argument of like the first time Vulcans met Klingons, the only reason they were able to make it out is they shot first and asked questions later because that was the only thing the Klingons respected. So I think Vulcans are just much more logical in the sense that they kind of are much more adaptive to the situation than perhaps humans would be, who kind of have regular responses. I guess that would probably be the general thing. But I think Vulcans were never incredibly militaristic. But you at least got the sense, even in Enterprise, that they were definitely more advanced than most other societies. And so that kind of led most other societies to kind of be like, all right, well, we're just not going to fuck with them, is generally the rule.
Just as a question, the entire thing of how people on borders, when borders are written or drawn, get screwed. What I may be misremembering this because I'm remembering it from a book, from a novelization from way back. Was there was an Federation outpost that was beyond the neutral zone, and they had to get them back? I don't know.
Yeah, it was. I think there basically was. There's a few things that have happened with the neutral zones, and between Romulans and Starfleet, or Cardassian Starfleet, depending on which era you're looking at or what show you're looking at. But generally, when Starfleet generally's rule of thumb is like, oh, we don't want to have conflict with these people, so we'll make a little neutral zone where it's like no one can live here, and we'll respect that between our borders, and then that'll create less conflict. But then generally, what always happens is like, in that neutral zone, the other side will come in whenever and do whatever they want. And Starfleet's like, well, we can't go in there and do anything because that's a neutral zone. But it's like clearly like, well, the Romulans are fucking with people. Why can't we go and rescue them? And Starfleet's like, well, it's beyond us. And so that's generally sort of a major problem that you see recurring a lot. Also, something that I should mention, speaking of borders, that was super interesting. If you want me to drill down into the weeds a little bit, but I found it to be one of the most fascinating political discussions in Star Trek. There's the prequel novel to Star Trek Picard called Last Best Hope by Una McCormack. And in that novel, there's this really, really great discussion that I almost maybe was like, I wish that had been Star Trek Picard, even though I like Picard. The basic one of the basic plots of that is that because the Romulan sun is going to go supernova, basically destroying a large part of the Romulan star empire, a lot of Romulan refugees are being taken from Romulus and the Romulan worlds into the Federation. And what the Federation and Starfleet decides to do is just like, all right, we're going to take these Romulans and just dump them on the border planets right near in Federation space. You even see that in the actual Star Trek Picard show proper. The Romulan planet Picard visits in episode 4 is a Federation planet that Romulans have just been dumped on. And this creates an interesting political situation because a lot of these border worlds start going like, hey, we didn't ask to have all these refugees brought here. And so you start to see a coalition of them form together to say like, hey, we constantly as border worlds get dumped on by Earth Federation, Earth, Vulcan. You always overpower us. And so we're just going to say, we're going to form a coalition ourselves and say no more. And they almost even threaten to leave the Federation at one point. So that's an interesting thing. But then, and you can see that these border worlds actually kind of have a point. They are not being treated with equal weight as Earth and everything else, but they also, there's even another complication in it that it ends up being, a lot of their points ends up, while legitimate in some ways, ends up being couched in racism, and they start being racist towards Romulans. So it's like, I really liked that book so much because it was all these like interesting dynamics at play of like, you know, discussions of refugees, of borders, things that are talking about today. But then you can also be like, there is an element of a point of people's voices not being equally heard, but also it's being couched in racism. So it's like these interesting sort of dynamics at play that I think, unfortunately, Star Trek, the show proper, fails to often address.
One of the things I found out about the, or not odd, because this is the stuff I'm always paying attention to off this particular side of it, is humanity and citizenship and all of that. It actually took me until your video to realize what the difference, why some people were getting full reconstruction and some people weren't. But the one of the questions which I wish they had actually at least addressed in Picard is one of the reasons that a lot of the Romulans refused to go was because the slaves were to go too, and they would be freed under Federation rules. And yet we have the Borg reclamation, and they're treated as not citizens of Romulus.
Yeah, I mean, that's an interesting dynamic at play there because you see, like you mentioned, I did a video on that where you see in Picard, Hugh, the Borg character on that show, he was made human again. He was reclaimed from the Borg in Federation space by a Federation vessel. So he, I'm sure they're off screen between the years. He probably had to fight for citizenship even still, but he earns Federation citizenship. So when he goes to the Borg Reclamation Project, he's given full rights and immunity from the Federation. But considering the Borg Reclamation Project is technically under Romulan government control, all of the Borg that are reclaimed there do not get Romulans, that do not get Federation citizenship at all. But they also, because the Romulans, unlike the Federation, view these people as less than. They're like, oh, these ex-Borg, we hate them. They're gross, disgusting, less than people. They don't get citizenship from Romulans, and it creates this interesting moment in the show where the Romulan villain character can kill as many of the ex-Borg she wants because she's just allowed to do that because they don't have any rights. But she can't touch Hugh, who is also an ex-Borg but has full citizenship rights under the Federation. So you have this interesting dichotomy of like how citizenship really determines your human rights in a lot of senses, which is why citizenship is considered a human right under I believe the Geneva Convention states that. So
yeah, well, we have a president who doesn't believe that, so
that's a whole other
Well, yeah, but I mean that diverges a little from the Federation. This is clearly the I was gonna say the worst case timeline, but so
I mean, I've settled on the opinion. We're in the mirror universe, so it's fine.
So there's
and the mirror universe to the mirror universe, just the worst down.
Yeah.
Well, so there was. So obviously in Star Trek, they have gone over the past, at the very least briefly to some degree, and was it the war where they
Which war? There's so many.
Yeah, I know.
The Romulan War, the Klingon War, the Dominion War.
No, the war, the pre-Federation war, like early Federation war, the war where they genetically modified Khan.
Eugenics War.
Yeah, the Eugenics War. Was it after that they started to give up money, or what was the point?
It's canon is a little bit fuzzy on this, just because to some degree, in the sense that because the Eugenics Wars technically would have already happened.
Yeah.
in our real history, so canon is a bit fuzzy on this because it kind of has to, because real life has, they never expect Star Trek to go for 50 years. But generally the way that history works is, if we look at it, the Eugenics Wars were a thing, which basically the only thing that's officially known about it is that humanity genetically engineered supermen like Khan, and they basically set up their own fiefdoms. Like, all these different genetically engineered people created their own fiefdoms around the world and kind of went to war with each other. So it was like these Ubermenches kind of fighting each other. And that created sort of a whole problem where Earth essentially said, no more genetic engineering, we're outlawing that. And that's a law that kept moving, that stuck with everything all the way through the Federation. But it was technically a thing that started with just Earth law, but just stuck around. Which then also gets us into genetic engineering prejudice, because Julian Bashir is prejudiced against because he's genetically engineered, but that's a different topic. Then, technically, as a whole separate thing, you have World War III, which
that was separate from the Eugenics War. Wow.
Yeah, it was supposed, from what I can tell, it is a separate thing, but but it's never clear. So they have talked about separately, but maybe one led into the other. It's never clearly defined. But technically, there's a World War III, and all we know about that is basically Earth is essentially decimated and destroyed right after that. But that right after that is when we have our first contact with Vulcans. And then Vulcans help Earth create their own warp program, and then that's what we see in Star Trek Enterprise, where Starfleet is still technically an Earth only group, not part of the Federation. And then Enterprise and the events of Enterprise sort of lead to the creation of the Federation. And it's never explicitly stated, but I believe by the time of Enterprise, they make allusions to the fact that Earth has, because I'm rewatching Enterprise now, and I don't think it's expressly stated, but they do kind of state humanity has evolved. They're even kind of at that point, at that sort of highfalutin, we're better now point in Enterprise. So I think they have evolved beyond money by that point. So generally one would assume that after World War III, the global economy had just been so fucked by that point that it was kind of destroyed, and then they are able to go out into space, and space just gives them so many more resources, and Vulcan just gives them so many more resources that to have an economic system at that point is kind of pointless. There's still probably elements of it here and there, but by the time of Enterprise, so the 22nd century, one would assume that, a sort of money system is, if not completely gone, definitely much less of a motivating factor than previously.
Yeah.
So this is you're allowing me to just go off on canon, so apologies.
Oh yeah, no,
no, it's by all means.
Yeah, it's almost like we asked you on as a guest who is an expert in Star Trek, and then mention stuff about Star Trek. You know, who would have thought that you might say a bunch of stuff about Star Trek? But yeah, and I assume that also dealt with after World War III, they unified, because that's usually what happens in science fiction. That's like a common theme.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We need to blow ourselves up one more time before we can get anywhere.
Look, the first time we didn't create a good UN, like the US was against joining it. The second time, you know, UN not completely yeah, it was better, but like not as good. So we need to do like a third time.
Third time's the charm, you know?
Yeah.
And even you could even make the argument, I believe the Earth Romulan War takes place between Enterprise and the forming of the Federation. So you could even make an argument that like the Federation is only born out of, and actually you see it in an episode of Enterprise, the Federation is only born out of a fourth war, the Earth Romulan War. So yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, I do take it as canon that it was born out of that absolutely stirring speech that Archer gave. That was, it moved me to tears, I will say.
Yeah, that last speech that Archer, forgetting These Are the Voyages, which is a shit episode, but the final episode of Enterprise, called Terra Prime, is kind of an episode dealing with what we're kind of talking about.
You're cutting out.
Have the first meeting,
or is it on my end?
To bring together a bunch of. Oh,
you're roboting a little bit. Sorry.
Oh, okay, sorry. But going back to what I was saying, the final episode of Enterprise, not counting These Are the Voyages because that's a shit episode, but the final episode, the actual finale of Enterprise that I actually think is a brilliant finale. That episode is called Terra Prime, and what it is Enterprise is trying to get, Earth is bringing together a bunch of alien species together to form like the first council that we can kind of extrapolate will eventually become what the Federation will be. But then during that meeting, a terrorist group called Terra Prime, run by RoboCop, as we talked about before, he basically tries to instigate a war and basically says like Earth first, make Earth great again, that sort of idea.
Oh God.
He doesn't say that, but it's very that sort of idea, like xenophobic, close all our borders, Earth should be a very isolated society, fuck aliens, that sort of thing. And so that whole episode is about Archer kind of pushing back against that. And then Archer gives this really beautiful speech.
Oh no.
Oh no, we froze the guest.
No, we froze the guest.
Thinking about that, so.
Right as you started that, you froze.
Yeah, the last, but the actual.
Give a really beautiful speech.
Yeah, really beautiful speech that I just recited beautifully from memory for all of you.
We will never know now. There's no way to find out.
That's because somebody stopped the program before the speech could actually go on. Just for the record, the other two people, the other two in the house, went through Enterprise during all of this and had never seen it. And as I'm walking downstairs, I'm hearing the ending of the last episode. And the next day, there's a broken TV on my porch, so I'm guessing they didn't like it very much.
Well, the actual finale, These Are the Voyages. Steve Shives did a great video on why that finale sucks. Is a terrible episode. But if you chop that episode off and just ignore that it ever happened, the actual two-parter that is right before it actually functions as a really, 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 really good series finale. So I think if you take that as the series finale and then see what the actual final episode is like a coda, which it kind of is because it jumps forward like eight or 9 years.
Yeah. And I'm gonna disagree with the entire world and say I actually kind of liked it.
Yeah, I mean, there's elements of it that I don't hate, but I yeah.
The very ending with all the captains speaking was.
Oh yeah,
was-
that's sweet.
Yeah.
I mean, the argument that I'd make for it is, if I was going to go off on that episode, is the episode before it, like I said, is a great ender to Enterprise, and that's the actual series finale. And then that episode is more of a finale to that era of Star Trek, because at that point, Star Trek had been going since when Next Generation started all the way through Deep Space Nine, Voyager, and then Enterprise. That was like an 18-year stint of Star Trek.
Yeah.
And that finale functions better as a finale to that whole era of Star Trek than it does as a finale for Enterprise in and of itself. So
Yeah, and that might have been the general goal that they were thinking. But yeah, when it comes to the Federation, they seem to have, like, obviously they've got a lot of laws, admirals, run way too militaristically. Although they have civilians aboard their ship too, a lot of times.
Yeah, before the stepfather became Locke, he was he was one of the. I'm geeking out on other roles people are doing. I'm so sorry. I mean, sorry. The wild-eyed admiral with the two different color eyes. I cannot remember his name for some reason.
Not ringing a bell off the top of my head.
The bald guy played Locke and played the
yes, on the episode Pegasus. Yeah. Oh gosh, Steve just
Yes, I know, and Steve is going live right now, and I'm actually just writing a quick note.
Just asking him as we go. Steve, we need your help right now. What's going on?
It's okay. I think between all of us we can kind of sort of say what we're doing.
I can tell you his name real quick.
I'm a bit neophytic in Star Trek in a lot of ways, which was surprising to a lot People.
Admiral Pressman.
Admiral Pressman.
That sounds
I honestly
familiar.
have never finished Enterprise.
It's worth. Okay, I will.
I've gone through a couple of times. They seem to actively hate their fans.
I don't think so. I go back and rewatch. I'm rewatching it right now. I'm in the middle of rewatch. The first two seasons are incredibly rough. I actually don't think. I would argue. I don't think it's bad. I just think it's kind of really dull. The first two seasons are just kind of dull. They're just like very rote. Like, yeah, that's an episode of Star Trek, I guess. There's nothing really special or unique, but it's just like a very tropey, just trope after trope after trope. Which is disappointing because if you look at like behind the scenes, they actually had a lot of ambitions with that show that they weren't able to do because the studio just said, make Star Trek, do this normal Star Trek.
Gotcha.
And so it felt very tropey. But then by the time you get to the third season, when it was clear that Enterprise was not a success and the studio stopped giving a crap, then they're like, all right, well, we can actually do some risky stuff. And from the third and fourth season of Enterprise, I actually will argue the third and fourth season of Enterprise are probably two of the best seasons of Star Trek, period. The hard thing is you have to get through two of the worst seasons of Star Trek, period, to get to that.
I don't know. The first season of Voyager is like really bad. I don't know if you can beat that.
Just to defend Enterprise a little bit, I actually think that the ending is the last chunk of season 2 was pretty damn good. And when Dean Stockwell came on,
that was a good episode too. Yeah.
And
I mean,
from that moment, it was pretty damn good.
There are gems in there. I will definitely say I don't disagree with you. There, if you go back through seasons 1 and 2, as I'm doing right now, there are episodes here and there. I'm like, oh, that's a stellar episode. You have a Shuttle Pod 1. You have the Andorian incidents. You have there's a couple other ones here. Cold Front, I think, is actually a pretty decent episode. But there are like 4 or 5 episodes out of like 26 episode seasons So like it's not, and the rest of the episodes, I don't think there are any bad episodes outside of Night in Sick Bay, which is, even though it's bad,
which is
it's still
gorgeous. It's
Night in Sick Bay
glorious.
is a so bad it's good episode, but it is a bad episode, but it is a hilariously bad episode. It's just like, what is happening here?
Is this going to be a major disagreement? Is
Oh no! I love A Night in Sick Bay for the absolute
okay.
reason that
let me pitch one scene that happens.
We have discussed it.
Yeah, one scene that happens in Night in Sick Bay is Archer has a dream that he is at his dog's funeral, and then the doctor is like giving the eulogy for his dog, and it's like in the rain in a cemetery. It's like the whole nine for his puppy, and then the eulogy starts spinning off into how he has sexual tension with his first officer. Like, it's expressed as like, the eulogy is like, and when a captain has sexual tension with his first officer, it's like literally like that's the script. Like, what is happening in this episode?
But I do think he pulls it off with what he's given.
Yes.
Because he's just amazing. But the I had something that was important too. Discovery at least has one of the things that a lot of people don't like about Discovery is that they have the Klingon disguised as a human. However, that's something from Enterprise that they took pretty directly.
And actually something from the original series they took pretty directly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's well, they want an explanation.
Yeah, in Trouble with Tribbles. That's a plot element in the episode Trouble with Tribbles way back in the original series, that there's a guy who is a Klingon pretending to be human.
Yeah, and do they
original series? I don't know.
Do they reference that again in the Deep Space Nine episode where they go back in time to the Trouble with Tribbles episode? Okay,
they do indeed.
And instead of explaining, they say we don't explain that, we don't talk about that with outsiders. Which is
they do explain that in Enterprise. They do.
Yeah, which is and I like that they used that particular explanation with Discovery guy. I suck with names.
He's my least favorite character of Discovery, to be fair. Vogue Ash Tyler.
Yeah, but still one of my favorite actors. So.
Oh, the actor's great. I have no problem with any of the actors. I like, even my least favorite character in all of Star Trek, Neelix, is played by the wonderful Ethan Phillips, who is a wonderful, amazing human. I just don't like Neelix.
Sweeter than apple pie on a summer evening.
Mm-hmm.
So
I kind of went off on Enterprise, lost the thread of politics of the Federation.
Look, I have a question, because there's apparently a lot of vagueness when it comes to the politics of the Federation and Starfleet. So I'm curious, what do the people do who aren't in Starfleet? Because, like, is it just grow a grape farm, or just, read books? I'm trying to think of what anyone else does.
Yeah, what they say is they can do whatever their heart desires. We've gotten like hints of it. I think actually probably the show that showed it the best was Picard, because that show there's barely any Starfleet in Picard at all. It's all very civilian focused. And so you get little hints of, like, there's Raffi. I mean, Picard has a vineyard. Raffi technically lives in like a shack, like a trailer, in the Vasquez Rocks. And there's a book called Trekonomics that postulates that the currency of the Federation is reputation.
Yeah.
And so, like, your reputation allows you to kind of do different things. And
Gotcha.
We also get hints in this Discovery, technically. If we want to talk a little bit about this sort of thing, Stamets, the main science character on Discovery, technically was a civilian who got not officially drafted, but kind of drafted into Starfleet because his spore technology was so cool that they wanted to use it during the Klingon War. And they kind of asked him to join Starfleet in order to give him the resources to do the stuff that he needed. But technically, Stemets was just a civilian scientist before that point. And just sort of like, I'm a scientist doing science stuff, and I just like studying science. So presumably it's an abundant society in the sense that you can, like, if you want to do something, you can. And they have colleges and everything too, because you learn that the character of Dodge in Picard applied to get in, like was in college, and she applied to get into the Daystrom Institute. So like there's still colleges and schools and different jobs here and there, and one would just presume that, like, because the galaxy is so freaking big, if you can't do the thing that you want to on Earth, you can move to Vulcan and do it there or something like that. But there's still an element of, like, you have to be qualified. So
Yeah.
That lets me out of every job that ever existed.
Well, it's fine.
Yeah,
With
there's more than just qualified. It gets confusing because you can't just decide to own a vineyard. You have to, it's a family thing. And you go looking for someone who has a ship.
Yep.
And things like that. You can't just say, I want one, and therefore you get one.
Yeah.
It's-
Yeah, it's all very, that again, this goes into the problem of the vagueness of the Federation and what the hell. I mean to make it, I mean, utopian societies like that, unless like they kind of have to, quote unquote utopian, they kind of have to be vague because they can't really work. I mean, you compare that with something like I think a more realistic depiction of a similar type of society in many ways is The Expanse, because The Expanse does an interesting thing called with its story. If you look at Earth and the politics of Earth in that series, they are also a pretty social, like heavily socialist society, in that every single person gets the minimum of what they need. They can get food, they can get water and things, but it's not post scarcity, and there's not an abundance of jobs. So to get a job in that society, you actually have to apply just to be able to have the possibility of getting a job. You don't even apply to get a job. You apply to maybe get a job, and there's a lottery for people getting a job. And most of the people on Earth actually just kind of like, well, we got nothing to do. We kind of just laze around, and it creates a drug problem, and it creates like a vagrancy problem on the planet. But everyone is provided for. Like no one's going to worry about starving. It's just no one has anything to do. So that's sort of a more realistic portrayal of something similar in a weird way.
Well, out of curiosity, because this is something I've been meaning to ask you on our other things, and it's going to come up again. Trust me. I've always wondered about post-scarcity societies and the concept of lotus eaters, and Perfict and I talked about this a little bit at one point, separately from this show. And if you have a very long life and you really don't have to do anything if you don't want to, what is incentive, and is reputation enough?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I generally feel like this is an answer that I don't think we necessarily have an answer to. But I generally feel, and some research has shown this, that like people want to do stuff. Yeah. Most people don't want to just sit and do nothing. So I feel like, yeah, the profit motive is a motive, I guess. It's the best way to put it. We can talk about, that's a whole other discussion on the profit motive, but it is a motive, but I definitely don't think it's the only thing that can motivate us. And I guess for Starfleet, I mean, Star Trek, I was talking about like the currency being reputation, but they do make a point several times to say that like the motivating factors of humanity at that point is not profit, but it is directly to better ourselves. Like Picard eventually says that at one point. It's like we don't care about money. Our goals are to better ourselves, and that's like apparently that is enough, and that is enough of a cultural unifier to sort of incentivize people to go forward. That we as a group decide that we want to work together to better ourselves as our incentive.
Yeah, and I could honestly see that as a potential incentive. I mean, here's the thing. I can't tell when it comes to my personal personality, and everyone's got different personalities. So I don't know what everyone else is thinking, but in like a post scarcity society, given that I want to learn and try out just about everything, including expanding my own lifespan to be able to learn more. Yeah, it wouldn't matter. Like I've wanted to I've wanted to do random bits of science as well. Gene transformation is fun, and I would like to do that more than the one time. Well, not one time. It's a basic biological thing.
The one time when you created this entire pandemic.
No,
I also have to say I do have to wrap out.
yeah, I know. That's what I was going to get to. Yeah, so we should. We will be back in. Presumably in a. Yeah, we'll just like.
We'll be back in a matter of seconds.
Oh! Wait. Should I do a Q snap?
Oh, do it.
Oh wait, no, that was a terrible snap. Wait. Well.
Christy, you took away all my makeup. What did you do?
I changed to worst shirt.
And I have a spinny dress, so I win.
And
I'm still wearing the same thing.
2 cups of coffee back here. What?
Anyways, we were talking about the politics of Federation, but since we are in the more freeform mode anyway, we can just talk about anything about the Federation. Honestly, there's a lot to talk about the Federation.
Yeah. Anyone have any specifics you want to mention? 'Cause I can go off on stuff, but I always need a starting point.
What would be a good starting point? I didn't plan for us to have to film on 2 separate outfits. I mean,
yeah. That's all my fault, so apologies on that.
Nah, it's
I had to go too, so it was not. It really isn't. So.
Yeah, I mean, weird scheduling stuff happens. Let's see here. Where can we begin? Or where can we begin? So.
In space, the final frontier.
The final frontier.
So what's up with the Ferengi?
Oh, that fits in directly with my example. In the first season, there was an episode where the Ferengi took over the Enterprise on Enterprise.
Mm-hmm. I actually just watched that like a couple days ago.
And I was like, why make it the Ferengi? It wasn't needed that it be the Ferengi. And it contradicts so many things that happened later in the Next Generation and so on, where the Ferengi were new. Sorry.
Yeah, they make no. They make a point in that episode to like make it very clear that they don't learn who the Ferengi are. It's very like hand wavy, but they make a very clear point that like they I think Archie even asked like, "Who are you?" And it's like, "Well, who we are doesn't matter." But that was also at the point where Enterprise felt like it was trying to like, "Hey, look, we're tying into Star Trek stuff and trying really hard to like do reference things," which they would eventually do better in season 4. Season 4 actually did like the prequel stuff even better. But that was sort of a time where they're just like tossing things into a blender and hoping something interesting comes out. Like even that episode had all the Ferengi are played by like Trek veterans. So you had Ethan Phillips, who played Neelix, as one of the Ferengi, Jeffrey Combs, who is always a good Ferengi, who had already played a Ferengi in Deep Space Nine, hilariously enough. And then you had one more, Clint Howard, who was famous for being, he was in Deep Space Nine as well, but he was most famous for being in the episode The Corbomite Mover, all the way back in the original series as the little baby controlling the ship.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, but yeah, no, the Ferengi are fascinating, honestly.
Well, I mean, like, how do they maintain? Because they are very capitalistic and possibly are they fascistic? Are they like
No, no, not really. They're just they're very authoritarian. But they're not exactly like pure. It's a very patriarchal, extremely patriarchal,
Well, yeah.
authoritarian society, but it is more capitalism played to an extreme rather than fascist. Cardassians are more of the fascists, and Romulans too, to a degree. Though Romulans are kind of more based on like Roman culture. So
that
yeah,
makes sense given the name.
Yeah, exactly.
They used the Ferengi to reflect on capitalism and how it behaves and so on with Rom, and pointing out that on Deep Space Nine, his son pointing out that he was a great engineer. I think it was Rom was his name, the cousin of Quark.
Yep, it's Rom.
And saying he was a great engineer and he could be a really good engineer. He just wasn't really good as a capitalist.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
so
and-
he was a failure as a Ferengi.
Exactly. No, they make that a point. I mean, Rom is a wonderful, wonderful character because he actually starts like he starts quoting the Communist Manifesto. He like starts at like a labor union in one episode. He starts literally getting like doing a communist rebellion against Quark. It's very clearly like doing that sort of like story. And it's wonderful. And then also Rom, like as you mentioned, is like a good engineer. I also have a headcanon that Rom is genderqueer. This is my own headcanon, but there's an episode in that show where Quark changes genders for an episode because you can do that on Trek apparently for an episode. It was a very meh episode, but there's a moment where Quark's like trying to learn how to walk like a woman to pretend to be a woman, and quote unquote. And so he's like trying to learn, and then Rom's like, no, you got to do it like this, and he does like this perfect like hip swaying like stride and everything, and everyone just looks at him as like, it was really good, Rom. Like better than
practicing.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's just like it's like I have this headcanon that Rom is genderqueer.
I have had that headcanon for many a year while I was like, oh, why can't I do that?
Yeah. Well, it's one that hey, I don't know. I mean, that's like asking why some of the women around me can't wear heels, but like that's beside the point. Yeah, so I can see how some of that could play into the annoying anti-trans stereotype, which is
I mean
yeah.
I mean, that episode is not as bad as it could have been. I mean, I go back and rewatch it, and it is very cringy, but there are episodes that do... There are episodes of other shows that are much more on the head transphobic. There's just stuff in that episode that is, like, played really awkwardly, like it's... And the worst part is really bad, and the worst part of it is, like, the goal of it, he gets a gender change, is the fact that he's trying to trick this guy into believing that this Ferengi who is going to give rights to women, into believing that women are smart. And Quark's mother, who is a very smart woman, can't do the meeting for some such reason. I forget exactly why. And so Quark does it so that he can be like, look, I'm a woman now, and I can, still do all the businessy stuff. And so he's pretending to like trick this guy into thinking that he's, a woman. And there's just a lot of like weird jokes that they play off of that. Number one, there's the trope of like trans people are trying to trick somebody.
Especially men.
Yeah, exactly. So there's that annoying and terrible trope. And then there's also a thing too that just is weird, that like Quark does become dumb, and like kind of ruins the whole message of the there's like a point in the episode where like someone's trying to tell him after he's changed genders, and someone's like trying to tell him all the numbers, and like he's like, all right, so you need to make sure you tell him this thing, and then Quark's like, oh, all these hard numbers, can't we just sit and talk? And I'm like, yeah. So,
I know plenty. I am aware of far too many women mathematicians who broke ground in the mathematical field.
Mm-hmm. So yeah, no, it could have been worse, but it is pretty bad.
Yeah.
Of course, well, you have the joke that all trans women are programmers, so
It's not inaccurate.
Look,
no, it's
I only know a little bit about programming, okay? I'm not any
Well,
good at programming.
I'm terrible at it. Just I'm a hardware person.
But
It does seem
in
really
all honest-
weird that Star Trek has found ways to be confronting the problem of race since the 60s
Yeah.
and addressing it fairly directly and even more and more directly. And they managed to address sexuality, as in, homosexuality and lesbian sexuality and so on, all those sorts of things. They managed to address those, and the possibility that there are other sexualities and all those things by putting it in a sci-fi format. But they really haven't been addressing trans at all.
Well, trans and also women's rights in general, they're all it's kind of bad at addressing like women's issues generally. Whenever they try to actually tackle women's issues, they almost always kind of fail at it, which is really kind of hilarious. And
Yeah.
trans stuff, yeah, they seem there's hints that I've heard that they're going to be tackling trans stuff in the next season of Star Trek Discovery. But other than that, yeah, the only time they really kind of directly talk about trans issues, and it wasn't even intentional, was the episode in the Next Generation called "The Outcast," which I think we talked about last.
Yeah. We talked about that. Yeah.
But they're gonna be addressing trans issues. Oh, that'll really please the people online.
Oh yeah, I'm sure there will be. Oh, woke SJW agenda.
Yeah, it doesn't seem like Star Trek has improved some of the feminist aspects since the 60s, and actually getting Uhura in there, which is partially about race and partially about gender. There was more than one reason why it seemed ridiculous to some people. And even then, like, they never had Uhura in command outside of the animated series.
Yeah.
Well, you as you all as you know, I haven't seen most of the original series, so I have unfortunately seen a thing where the idea of woman captain is a ridiculous idea.
Uh-huh.
Oh yeah, the original series is really kind of terrible to women. I mean, again, the franchise in general is not great towards women. It gets somewhat better over time, but sometimes it regresses. See Star Trek Enterprise. But it's generally not been great towards women until, I will say, Discovery. I think Discovery actually does a really decent job of showcasing a plethora of diverse women characters. And Deep Space Nine, I think, did a decent enough job as well, though it didn't, when it, again, looking at the Quark gender change episode, it was not always perfect in addressing women's issues when it tried to tackle it head on. But in terms of representing a plethora of diverse women characters, I think Deep Space Nine did it best pre-Discovery.
Well, and the most frustrating thing is Next Generation could have, if they had gone down certain routes, given that the chief security officer was a woman, as well as like this really, like there is a masculine woman and a really feminine woman on the bridge.
Mm-hmm. And then you also had Crusher too, who, while she was in like a caretaker role, she was still a very strong character when given the chance to be. So,
I was Stephen Bear in the documentary
What We Left Behind.
Thank you. It does talk about that he really feels that they failed on LGBT issues. That they tried here and there, but never got it.
Yes, but he weirdly, which I agree with, and I think it was like nice of him to acknowledge that. But in that same scene in the documentary, he points to the episode I've been talking about, the gender change episode with Quark, and says
Yeah.
like, "Oh, this is a great episode about women's issues."
Oh my god.
So yeah, so it like kind of goes to like he still has his blind spots on.
Oh.
So yeah, they do make a point in the doc though, and that to a point that I agree with, in that like I was saying, I do think they have very strong women characters. The
Yeah.
issue is that when Star Trek tried to actually like focus on women's issues, like actually discuss women's issues very didactically, like in that gender episode of Deep Space Nine, it often failed. But when it actually does a good job of showing just women characters existing in the world, like with Janeway or Kira on Deep Space Nine, Seven of Nine, even though she was visually, a sex object, she was definitely a well-written character. So I think when and B'Elanna Torres as well is also a great, well-written character. So just having women existing in Star Trek from probably Deep Space Nine onwards, they did a decent job. Sans Enterprise, I would say. But pre that, and then also whenever they try to didactically tackle women's issues, they just abysmally failed almost every single time.
Well, I mean, probably you already know it. But the guy who played Trip, whose name is
Connor Trinier.
Thank you. Yeah, I will not remember that in about 10
Oh, I
seconds.
love Connor Trinier. He was also in Stargate Atlantis, and I loved him.
It's just a name I can't wrap my brain won't process. But that's not the point. He is insisting that character was gay. He said I kept trying to play him gay.
You're actually sorry that you're actually thinking of Malcolm Reed, played by Dominic Keating. That was the character assistant. Yeah.
Reasons to have a Star Trek expert.
I know what he looks like, and my brain is just not. I told you, I'm not. I don't know who played any of the people except Scott Bakula. So,
yep.
and the one guy who's in every science fiction show that that exists.
I think that's Connor Trinier, because Connor Trinier's been in a dang near everything. So.
And weirdly enough,
I'm sorry.
How dare you not know every single piece of information about like a 50-year-old franchise? You should be studying it every day, like me.
I could talk about Charlie X for a long time now.
Speaking of episodes that are sexist, that Charlie X literally slaps her ass at that. I mean, it's played as bad, but it's still like Kirk is. Sorry, go.
I actually think it is far less sexist than I was led to believe, and I think there are some good stuff in there on that.
There is, but then there's like also the scene where Kirk is like completely unable to explain why you shouldn't slap a woman's ass. Like he's trying to, and he's just like, they don't like it. Yeah, it's just really awkward and strange, and then like the very next episode, Kirk like starts ranting about like a woman having a woman yeoman. He literally goes like, if I find out the person who assigned me a woman yeoman, and then McCoy's like, oh, don't trust yourself, Jim. It's like, and then it's just it's.
I haven't gotten that far yet. So.
Oh, and then there's also the episode where Kirk.
You're gonna do it too.
I'll do one more that shows how awful the original series was. This is the worst one. It's the episode where Kirk splits in two. The Enemy Within.
I have seen that one. Okay.
The evil version of Kirk assaults, basically trying to sexually assault Rand, and she gets away only by scratching him, and it's actually a very terrifying scene. Yeah. And then the very next scene, they put Rand basically goes and says, hey, Kirk tried to assault me. And they put her in the same room as her accuser. They put the person that she's put in the same room as Kirk. And then all the men essentially say, yeah, Kirk couldn't have done that. He's not like that kind of person. And they essentially gaslight her to the point where she kind of questions her own story. Because she had scratched Kirk. And then Kirk, the good Kirk, basically it was like, oh, do you see any scratches on my face? And she's like, no, I guess I'm crazy. And then the end of the episode kind of ends once they realize what had actually happened, that Kirk had been split in two. Spock makes a joke that essentially is basically like, oh well, yeah, it was probably exciting for you though. Like Spock literally makes a joke. It's like, well, there was certainly something interesting about the evil Kirk. Like, and winks at her, and Rand gets all blushy. He's like, I like Kirk. It's just like, yeah, it's real gross.
Yeah, reasons why
was
I have
alive back then.
I haven't watched all of the original series. I've only watched all of the animated series based on the original series.
Hey, the animated series is great. I will fight for that show. It was wonderful.
Yeah, no, and that was the only one where Uhura was captain.
Mm-hmm.
And it's got a cat girl, so what's not to love?
Yeah, I want a cat girl on the live shows. The cat people were only in one movie for a brief second, and it was Kirk having sex with them in Star Trek Into Darkness.
Well, of course. But I mean, to be fair, they're trying to play off of some of his attitude in the TV show. So.
Oh yeah. You know, it's totally. I have actually no fine. People always complain about Kirk being a womanizer in the Kelvin movies. I have actually no problem with it because number one, it makes sense with that version of the character who didn't grow up without a father. And number two, the movies actively portray it as a bad thing. And it's like not supposed to be a good thing.
Yeah.
People's always like, oh, they're making him the joke Kirk. I'm like, no, the Kirk is really good, and it makes sense for the character, and it's played as a thing that is bad and a character flaw that he needs to work on that the movie does address. So I always didn't have an issue with it.
I am upset that the third movie didn't do well.
Yeah, Beyond is great.
Yeah, no, Beyond is awesome, and I love the Spock McCoy interaction throughout that. That was it is so Star Trek. Maybe got too Star Trek for people.
I honestly, Star Trek Beyond is probably my third favorite Star Trek movie. It goes, my favorite is probably Undiscovered Country, then First Contact, then Beyond. Beyond is phenomenal.
Wait, which one's Undiscovered Country? I forget the names of all the Star Trek films.
I do love Undiscovered Country. That was spectacular. Pretty damn fine. Although it has its problems.
It does, but I think it's probably the strongest. I mean, every Star Trek movie has got its issues here and there.
Well, except for Star Trek 5, which is objectively the worst.
No.
Oh. Wait, am I forgetting one?
No, Star Trek Insurrection is probably my least favorite.
Which I've never seen. Every so once in a while, I just wander off into Doctor Who land while you guys are talking.
Well,
Star Trek 5 I actually will fight for as being it's not a great movie, but I'll fight for it in the sense that there are two scenes that I actually think are really wonderful. There's the campfire scene. I think is actually a really sweet scene between Kirk, Spock, and McCoy. Yeah. And there's the scene where it's the only scene that McCoy gets that is about McCoy's character in almost the entire franchise, but certainly definitely in the movies. There's a scene where we get to see him having to let his father die. And it's a very moving scene, and it's literally the only expressly McCoy character scene, because usually McCoy is just a vehicle to bounce off of Kirk and Spock, which is fine. That's what it's kind of his character function is. But that's the one scene where we actually get a scene of this is about McCoy. So those two scenes are wonderful, and then the rest of the movie is bad, yes, but it's a weirdly it's in that weird zone of being enjoyably bad, like Uhura doing the fan dance and what does God need with a starship? It's all just ridiculous enough that I can get into it and enjoy it.
I mean, fair. To be fair, technically, because of the hearing about it being terrible from my parents, who saw it in the theater.
Oh my God, I feel old.
I
saw it on opening day, so.
Wait, when did the movie come out? I'm trying to make sure I'm not misremembering things.
It would have been in the 90s, wouldn't it have been? It would have been 90... Right? It would have been... Or am I crazy? No, because Star Trek Motion Picture was 79. Star Trek 5 was...
opening day?
No, it would have been because Star Trek 5. Oh, let me see if I can guess this. Let's see. I'll look it up afterwards because I'm just trying to see how I guess this.
But I'm pretty sure I saw they had brought us as kids, and it's like the first Star Trek movie we technically saw, but I have no memory of it. Like so we're pretty young.
So it was
I'm gonna guess 89.
Well, Star Trek: The Next Generation was 89, and that's when that show started.
Yeah, but Star Trek V: The Final Frontier, 89.
No. Oh, dang
Sorry.
it. Why'd you have to say anything?
Oh, sorry. I forgot to.
I was trying to get my guess in.
Oh, sorry.
All right, never mind. No, it's okay.
The first movie that I remember was Star Trek 6, when they tried to explain the alliance, Klingons ending up in the having an alliance with the Federation.
And that's Undiscovered Country. That's my personal favorite.
Yeah, I mean that's a good one. And yeah, that was the first. I did see that in the theater.
I'm one of the weird Trekkies that like Star Trek Beyond or Star Trek Wrath of Khan doesn't even end up in my top 5. So
that's understandable.
The oddity of being in science fiction circles and nobody knowing that I really didn't know the show is that I was preview audience for at least for 3 of the films. So fill out the card. What did you think about that? That plus a whole bunch of other things, Lady Hawk, RoboCop, thing, and so I'm just sitting along for a lot of the stuff, just going, "Yep, okay, all right." I'm just trying to figure it out from context here. I've read the book. I've read the novel, short storyizations of the episodes, but we didn't watch TV, so I got to watch Twilight Zone and Spider-Man, and that's all I was allowed to watch. So.
I mean, those are good ones to watch.
Yeah.
I don't watch anything. That's a good history. Speaking of which, this is just a random aside that I'll make brief because it's slightly off topic. But I just watched a movie last night called The Vast of Night, which is a Twilight Zone-esque movie. It's on Amazon Prime. Fantastic. If you want your Twilight Zone fix, that movie is excellent. It just came out on Amazon Prime.
What's the title?
The Vast of Night.
Okay.
It just came out. And it's set in the 1940s, and it's a low budget movie, and it's kind of a paranoid sci-fi thriller about these two. One person's a radio host, and this other's a girl who does like the switchboards for phones at the time, and so they start hearing this weird signal on the phone lines, and kind of stuff starts happening. So it's very, very Twilight Zone, paranoid, sci-fi-esque.
That sounds more Outer Limits, but there we go. That stuff I can talk about.
Yeah.
I've seen all of One Step Beyond too, which nobody has. So.
Oh, hey. Not nobody.
Oh, good. There we go.
I
feel a little bit better now.
I never even heard of that.
Oh,
yeah.
It's the pre-Twilight Zone thing, sort of ish. It's
Gotcha.
basically what wanted to be Twilight Zone, and Rod Serling was very influenced by it.
But yeah, I don't know what my favorite first Star Trek movies is. Like, I haven't watched most of them in forever.
Mine's 4 because it has the guy who co-wrote and produced the Muppets on the bus.
Yeah.
He was the punk on the bus.
Nice.
He also came back to Star Trek for the short trek recently.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, he did. So.
I was so happy. I had a grin from ear to ear.
Yeah.
Kirk Thatcher is my unsung hero of everything.
I personally like my personal favorite Star Trek movie, like I said, is Undiscovered Country, but then it goes First Contact, Beyond, Star Trek 4, and then my 5th favorite is the Star Trek 2009, the reboot with the reboot that J.J. Abrams did. So those are probably my top 5.
I can
I've
see
seen-
that. That
I've
sounds
seen
like
the first date. I've seen the first Abrams. I've seen all. I didn't see the last Picard movie, and I didn't see, and I've only
Was
seen
that-
the first Abrams.
was that Insurrection?
Nemesis.
Oh, Star Trek Nemesis. Oh, that was the one with the Romulan slavery thing. Yeah. And fuck, I forgot the name of the actor.
Tom Hardy.
Yeah. I knew it was someone famous, and I'm like, I could picture him, and I started going there because I couldn't.
That movie got him hooked him on crack and made him lose his first wife, because he did that movie and it went so badly that he just started doing drugs and it ruined his marriage. So yeah, no, he seems like he's doing it all great now. So it all worked out in the end, unfortunately. But yeah, Fairly Nemesis is just so bad. It kind of ruined Tom Hardy's life for a little bit there.
He was still on drugs in that Batman movie. Or am I conflating actor
No.
and part?
No,
Which,
no.
believe it or not, I've not seen either. I'm terrible.
Yeah.
Does anybody want to talk about Into the Spider-Verse for folks?
I just watched that about a week or two ago, actually. So
I have also watched that, but but I mean, at the same time, I do want to look. I don't get to talk to Star Trek expert that often, and I have watched. I think I've watched every Star Trek movie at least once. Although I have no memory of Star Trek V because I've only watched someone making fun of Star Trek V.
I liked reading the novel. I actually thought the novel worked.
Oh, that's an
Trek
interesting thing about novelizations, because novelizations sometimes add more stuff that fleshes out the universe more and adds a bit.
Would stay away. Whatever you do, though, stay away from Star Trek: The Motion Picture novelization.
Well, I think the motion picture novelization is a fascinating peek into the mind of Gene Roddenberry, because Gene Roddenberry himself wrote that one, and also if you watch Star Trek: The Motion Picture, there's a lot of sexual subtext in it. I mean, I did a whole video on the sexual subtext of the movie. But if you read the novelization, Gene Roddenberry, who is known for putting sex in pretty much everything he did, every single piece is kind of about sex. You read the motion picture novelization, he takes that subtext and just makes it the text. Like, quite literally, there's a scene in it where the Ilea probe in the movie, Ilea gets taken by V'ger, and then she comes back as a probe who's just a machine, and she's just like, I'm a robot, essentially. And she slowly starts to gain sentience again throughout the movie by interacting with the crew. In the book, Decker, the captain of the Enterprise at that time, because Kirk is the admiral, Decker literally fucks sentience back into her. There's a scene in the book where he's like, she's just a it's really kind of creepy too. It's just like, she's just a robot and I miss her, and so I'm gonna have sex with the robot because I'm in love with her and I miss her and I think she's dead, so I'll just have sex with the robot version of her to get over it. And as they're having sex, she comes back to sentience briefly and oh, I love you, Decker, as they're having sex. So yeah, quite literally, Decker fucks sentience back into his probe.
Gotcha.
And that's not there is much more in that novel.
And that's not the least of it.
Yeah,
that is
not.
Yeah. Yeah. It's messed me up because I saw, again, preview audience, and the version I saw was 3 hours and some. So it was. I don't remember if that was in what I saw and got cut out.
It's very possible, but yeah, Gene Roddenberry just like to have all the sex. But yeah, I mean, if you watch, I did a whole video. I did a video on it, but if you watch the movie, I think the movie is actually decently layered. Yeah. Has decently layered and interesting sexual subtext. I really like that movie quite a bit for that. But
yeah, I remember. Yeah, go on.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'd like someone to fuck sentience back into me.
I mean, I've had people fuck sentience out of me. But
let's shy away from that kink. because
Ah.
but Star Trek yeah, no, I remember enjoying Star Trek motion picture years ago.
This is when you can fast forward through the long visual effects scenes.
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing. Most old movies are movies are a reflection of what people expect at the time. So, you know, pacing changes with culture.
Yes, but I will say even people at the time complained that it was a really slow movie, and the reason it was is because there was such a they had such a pain in the ass with the visual effects on the behind the scenes of that, where they had one company, and the person who was supposed to do the visual effects for the movie at first like kept charging the money and kept giving them back kind of crap and late and not what he was supposed to do. So they towards the end of production, like when they were finishing things up, they're like, all right, screw it, and they went with an entire other company to do the visual effects, and that company did actually a great job. The visual effects in the film were actually stellar, but they were all done at the very last minute and cost a shit ton for the studio. And the studio was basically like, "Yeah, you can't cut any of that. We spent too much money. You're keeping it all in." So
Yeah.
there's like literally like 10-minute sequences of just the ship going in.
I kind of wish I didn't know that, because I saw, again, I'm old. I saw 2001 when I was 7, so in the theater, and I thought that's what they were going for. I've always thought that until just I was today years old, as they say in the internet speak.
Well, I mean, a lot of it, I think things were starting to speed up in terms of pacing by the time Star Trek the Motion Picture came out.
Well, the bear that they were chasing with that movie was Star Wars. The whole reason they did motion pictures because oh look, Star Wars is a thing. We got sci-fi stuff. Let's shove Star Trek back on the screen.
Yeah.
Yeah, and part of the thing is that we have this long scene of coming towards the ship, and it's in dry dock and so on. And at the time, that was eye candy, and now it's just boring. Why are you drubbing us with this? Can't we get on to the next part?
Yeah, and in that sense, aspects of those particular aspects definitely didn't age well. As what happens with a lot of films. That being said, Alien is still a great film. I will fight for Alien. Aliens has a lot more dated stuff than Alien to me.
Oh, I like Alien way more than Aliens. I think Aliens is fine, but Aliens is so much better.
I have one problem with I saw it on video the first time, and it was from a pirate of a pirate of a pirate, and so I could barely see what was going on, which you can't anyway, because I've gone back and seen it since. But one of the things the only thing you could really hear on the soundtrack was a heartbeat going through the entire damn movie, and it sped up and slowed down as you were supposed to be scared or not scared. So I felt very manipulated. So I never quite got over that.
I will say I do think one of the best visual that I think Alien is actually a movie that benefits from watching it somewhat slightly degraded if you watch it on like VHS as opposed to on DVD, because when you watch it on VHS it's kind of harder to see stuff, so you're like paying much closer attention. And then it's 10 times scarier because you have to kind of pay more closer attention. That's just my thought on it. But.
Well, yeah, I mean the
Oh, you go.
Oh, okay. Yeah, the director essentially saw the alien or whatever, and like if you see too much of it, they're just like, "This is terrible. We need to have the alien. You know, less you see of the alien, the better." Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Was it you or Curio or Harris who did the video on that aspect of Alien?
What aspect?
What
you were talking about?
It's someone to do that. I forget who it was though. Maybe I feel like it was either Patrick H. Willems, I think, might have done it, or H. Bomber Guy, maybe.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Harris might have done it.
Yeah, I think H Bomber Guy did that. Yeah.
Yeah, and to show how much we've been talking about Star Trek, I kept thinking of well, I thought you said Paris. I thought you were talking about Tom Paris for a second or someone using that name.
So did I.
Yeah.
The first thing that popped into my head.
Well, just to wrap it to Star Trek, I always thought the Borg Queen was very Geiger inspired.
I mean, yeah, the Borg, especially starting in First Contact, where that's where the Queen made her debut, is always very body horror-esque, which is sort of the nature of Geiger. So.
Yeah, which makes it a good, which made Geiger a good choice. Sorry, now I keep going back to Alien, because Geiger was a good choice for Alien, given that it's it's a rape metaphor.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What was the other? Well, we could also we can stay on the rape metaphor part if you want to, but I was also gonna ask, like, what does everyone think of Alien Covenant?
I didn't see it.
I like it. I actually will fight for Alien Covenant. People hate on it. I actually think the first 2 acts of that movie are great, and then the third act is
Wait,
it's
that's the most
bad.
recent one, right?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah, because the last one I saw, and it's not because I have a special hatred for it, like, for the way the movies have changed. Like, I don't hate the one before that.
Prometheus. I like Prometheus too.
Yeah. Prometheus is a good movie. Aliens is actually at the bottom of my list for alien movies. And it's not like a bad movie, but like I just don't care for it, and they didn't even try when it comes to... Look, I kind of had an internal thing about the alien movies, about the fact that no one takes their gloves off correctly. Nobody in the entire movie. They always do it in a way that they shouldn't. And in Aliens, he doesn't even wear gloves. I'm like, yeah, I get you're a robot, but like, you can still spread stuff to other people. You should be wearing gloves.
I suppose it's a matter of what I always worry when I go into a movie about writers, for instance, or frankly musicians. Worlds I experience, and it's never right.
Yeah. I will say the bottom of my barrel has got to be Alien versus Predator Requiem.
Oh, I never saw that movie, so I can't really put it on the...
You don't need to. I've seen literally every Predator and Alien movie, so including all the Alien v Predator movies. So,
but
okay.
Did you read Batman versus Predator?
I did.
No.
Of course you did.
There's Alien versus Predator versus Terminator also. That exists.
Yeah, I have heard of that, and I may have seen someone making fun of it. I used to watch Linkara a bunch years ago.
I haven't.
I was gonna say, go.
I'm not going to feel bad about bringing up a movie just because I want to recommend it, because the pacing is like Alien, the constant threat and the never knowing when it's going to break into action again, and that's Split Second.
I haven't seen that one.
Which it's Rutger Hauer, and it's more supernatural than Alien, but it's got the same. It's a heart attack all through it.
Oh, I'm gonna put that on my list actually.
What was the name again?
I was
Split Second.
I was also gonna reference.
Oh yes, fuck yeah. Oh.
I was also going to reference, since we're talking crossovers really quickly, something I just recently realized and thought about was Green Lanterns are canon in the Kelvin Star Trek universe, if we're talking about crossovers. Weirdly, how this works is there is a Star Trek comic line, a Kelvin comic book line, that takes place, between the movies and everything. And the writers of the movies have said that comic book line is canon, and they even reference some of the things that happen in the comics in Star Trek Into Darkness. Like McCoy makes reference that he gave birth to he helped birth baby Gorn, which happens in the comics. So the comics are canon, And one of the stories of those comics, written by the same writer, is Green Lanterns come to the Star Trek universe and actually stay in our universe and become members on the Enterprise crew between Star Trek Into Darkness and Star Trek Beyond. So technically, during Star Trek Beyond, somewhere in the bowels of the Enterprise, there are some Green Lanterns floating around.
That
It's Monday. I wish I had the willpower to do my job.
Exactly.
Well,
But-
Transformers are canon in Star Trek now too. So what the hell, right?
I don't think that one technically I don't think is canon yet, but just through the Green Lanterns are technically canon just through that weird roundabout loophole. There's also a Star Trek X-Men crossover that was that they did a couple of. That was actually kind of interesting, especially because Patrick Stewart plays both Professor X and Picard.
yeah.
And also Wolverine and Worf are bros apparently in that, which makes perfect sense.
Yeah, that does
It
make
does.
sense.
Yeah.
Actually. Like,
Oh,
yeah.
comic books are fun.
Yeah, they are. They just do all the ridiculous stuff, and I love it.
For all the TV I haven't watched, and I've read a lot. I mean, I've read every Wonder Woman story from 1942 to 1978. So everything she's appeared in.
Damn.
That's that's nice. Do we need to make a Wonder Woman topic and just for
Shit,
you,
I
Christy?
want to.
I finally decided I'm getting a tattoo, and it is going to be the WW.
Oh, that's
Oh,
perfect.
nice.
So
That's my similar thing is I've seen every DC Comics movie, both live action and animated. And when I say every single one, I mean every single one,
Every
including
single one.
the Lego spin-off movies, the superhero high school girls like movies that they make for kids. Any movie that is like feature length that DC has made, I have 100% seen. Not every TV show.
Okay.
I'm working on it.
Okay.
including that one we don't talk about, right?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, what one don't we talk about? Oh no. Better not be
It's where
it better not be the Aquaman movie because I genuinely like that. a
Oh, I
lot.
like the Aquaman.
no the Brian Azzarello just did not understand what he was doing with the Killing Joke, and
Mm-hmm.
that's bat sex, and that is the one you went right to, right? Please.
Yeah. Oh yeah. No, Killing Joke is an
Oh.
atrocious adaptation.
Yeah, sorry. I was thinking live action movies. Oh, I was only thinking about. Oh no,
No.
Perfect.
There-
Perfect's gone.
There's so many animated movies, and some of them is most of them are good. I did not like Judas Contract, but that's because that was such a punch in the gut when I read it when it came
Mhm.
out, and they didn't punch me in the gut or even.
They did it
close
better
to
on the Teen Titans show and Young Justice. Young Justice and the Teen Titans shows both did that same storyline and did it better than the actual movie version did. So
So now
Well,
you're in my.
we did lose Perfect, by the way.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I'm actually sitting here with this open, with my mouse hovering over where you will be.
Yeah. Hopefully not over the reject button.
No,
Um,
I'm really careful about that. I did that by accident, and I once, and I will never do that again.
But yeah, going back to sci-fi, Babylon 5.
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah,
Have
I'm
you
out
guys
of this
seen
one again.
Okay,
Babylon
you
5
haven't
is
seen that?
gross.
That's a shame.
I just rewatched for my channel. I just rewatched the pilot episode. I haven't watched that show in like about 10 years at this point, so I'm planning on doing a rewatch in the near future. But I just rewatched the pilot, and I was just reminded by how good this show is.
Yeah,
Yes,
I mean there was stuff that like the nice thing about Babylon 5 is that it has a beginning, middle, and end.
Mhm.
And yeah, Babylon 5 has its problems and has some aspects that are dated, but it's less than a lot of shows that came out in that time. I
Mhm.
mean, Delenn was a metaphor for transitioning,
Yeah.
and was going to transition. That's why in the pilot she appears more masculine. She was going to be like male for the first season, and then transition to female in Babylon 5. That was in the original thought process, and it's a real shame that they didn't. Um,
There's a trans character in Red Dwarf, technically.
Oh, Holly.
Yes.
Very technically.
yeah,
In the actual definition, and like actually technically, yes. As a
Yeah.
machine. Yeah.
But I've not seen Babylon 5 except for the X-Files episode. And I say, yeah,
What?
and I say that and people go, what? But I swear I saw it because I didn't understand any of it, but I remember what I didn't understand for future reference. Does that make any sense?
I suppose.
I guess so. Yeah.
I've got a place in my brain for things I don't understand, and eventually, and one by every so once in a while, one of them will get pulled out, and it's like, oh, I get that now, and it goes over to the other side of my brain where I remember it forever.
Okay, perfect. Question: Babylon 5.
Yeah. What about it?
Have you seen it?
Yes.
Okay. So
Definitely.
3
This is
against
the
1.
woman out here. Yeah.
No. No, it's fine. We can,
But I similarly have the big stack of things that are in the fullness of time. I may come to understand them somehow, and every now and again.
Yes.
yeah.
So you get it. It's like, okay, this is a thing I don't understand, but someday I might, and so I keep it.
Yeah, and I think it's good for that. I mean, that's one of the nice things about sci-fi is that it can help some people down the road to asking the questions that help people think about that stuff. Sorry, I'm thinking about like.
Why are you here? What do you want?
I know this is gonna sound straight. Last time you were on, you two talked a bit about the autism thing, which I really hadn't ever talked about on my own thing. And I didn't want to jump in. Oh, me too. I did that. That's part of. And because I felt embarrassed and like people would hate me and all of that kind of thing, because that's one of the things.
Well, society doesn't help.
Yeah, it's true. But as weird as it is, they've always had a character. I mean, it's always the lens through which you're looking at humans. All the shows have that character, but and everybody goes on about Spock being an autism allegory in a way. But
Well, it makes sense because a lot of autistic people feel. Oh, sorry, I cut you off. My apologies.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's fine. I've always had the data thing so going on.
Well, I mean, it's true. One of the feelings of being autistic is generally sometimes feeling like you're an alien and that you don't understand humanity and you don't understand how other people work and function. So, like having the alien character be autistically coded just whether intentional or not, it just kind of makes sense, and you can easily see the connection there. So, pretty much any type of like outside of humanity alien character in Star Trek is almost always inherently autistic, like autistically coded. So you have Spock, Data, Deep Space Nine had pretty much all of them to a degree, but Odo is definitely in there. Voyager 7 to 9 definitely is autistically coded. Enterprise to Paul to a degree. I mean, Vulcan characters just in general are kind of artistically coded.
Well, yeah, and also to some degree, at the very least, early on, there's some of the coding for some of the aspects of toxic masculinity and how men are distance themselves from their emotions, are told that they should distance themselves from their emotions, and that feeling emotions is bad. And I think that some of that might relate a little bit to the original writing of Vulcans, at the very least. Obviously, it's changed a lot since the original series with Vulcans, but at least I get that impression as well.
Also,
Yeah,
if you
well-
if you if you want a good movie about autistic coding in Star Trek, there's a movie called Please Stand By, which is about a very very autistic woman who is a huge Star Trek fan and finds connection uh, through the character of Spock. And the whole plot of the movie is she goes on a road trip because she's trying to submit her Star Trek script to a contest at Paramount Pictures. So like her family won't let her submit the script. It's a script. Her script is Spock goes and visits Deep Space Nine. So that's her episode script. And so the whole movie is like a road trip movie with her like learning to come out of her shell to go and deliver this Star Trek script to Paramount. And there's a lot of Star Trek references and fun in there. It's a very good movie.
That
For-
sounds
for-
like a
for-
really good movie, actually.
Yeah.
For what it's worth, they had open scripts there. Why do I know this? Because while I didn't catch a lot of Next Generation once I got a regular gig that night and no VCR, poor musician, and all that, I submitted a script.
Hey,
Huh.
and did they happen with it?
Uh, no, but it's fine. They were very sweet about it. And, do you want to do this with it? And I kind of didn't because it was a data script and it was really trying to cope with my own head.
Yeah.
And I've since rewritten it as a non-Star Trek novel.
Yeah, and sometimes writing with that stuff is just good to get your feelings out, and just sort of like sometimes speaking things out loud helps. That being said, we are getting close to wrap up time. So, any last thoughts any last things anyone wants to say about Star Treks or Star Treks and politics? I know we've gone on
Diverged.
several tangents, but that's fine.
I will say the only thing I was gonna briefly mention, we don't have to get into a whole conversation on this, but unless you want to, but one of the things someone said, like, oh, how do the Ferengi function in that world? I would actually argue that the Ferengi are the only society that makes complete sense in that context, in the like the utopian world. Like it's not one I would want to live in, but it's one that weirdly like seems to be the most realistic in a weird way in terms of its economics.
Huh.
Just in terms of economics, that would be the only thing I would say.
Yeah, I think the Ferengi are used to be as the cautionary tale about capitalism, and that capitalism can't take you very far in the future.
Mm-hmm.
And from what you were saying before, just as a final thought, one of the because you were talking about the men, what I'm sorry, I don't know if I'm pointing in any direction that actually means anything. Where with the men being distant, I think one of the best things that they did with Cisco and they didn't do it initially as much, but is have him be dad that any dad should aspire to.
I mean, that's something that Avery Brooks expressly stated he needed to be in the show if he was going to do the character, because he said he had seen enough of black men being deadbeat dads on TV. And so he said, if I'm going to do this, I want to be a dad who is present and there. And by all reports, he was that to the actual actor who played Jake, too. Apparently, they had a very close familial relationship and still talk to this day.
That is so sweet.
Avery Brooks is a sweetheart.
Yeah. And I have no thoughts at all. Even though I got enough sleep, I don't know what to talk to. I don't have any final thoughts that haven't already been said that I can think of or remember. So.
Oh, sorry.
Oh,
I want to talk forever, so I'm.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
we can't eat up Jesse Gender, all of Jesse Gender's time.
I've got literally, you can't see it here, but I'm looking at like I have my whole green screen set up right over there because I have to run and do videos as soon as we're done.
Yeah, so you can find me. I've got links to my Twitter, Discord, YouTube, all that stuff at ozmainthedark.com. I may or may not be working on stuff. I hopefully I should get the video that I have almost have the script done for. It's just things have been a mess, and I've tried to deal with stuff. And hopefully
the world is a mess right now, so you're not alone. Don't worry.
Yeah. And I might start having regular Twitch content out again. Right now it's still relatively irregular with D&D and stuff. Where can people find you? Perfict, still the Rumpus Room and this?
I do this every week, and then there's the Rumpus Room, and people can come join and talk about whatever needs to be talked about.
Yeah. And Christy, Abbey, are you working on anything?
Yeah.
And where can people find you?
I'm always the one with the thing that's forever. I'm on 7 days a week now, so it's kind of a little bit a lot.
Keep him busy.
Yeah.
Well, at least you'll have this Sunday off.
Actually, one of the pre-recording stuff. Next week, for instance, is Vera Wild / Council of Geeks.
I'm excited to see that.
It was a great conversation. And I've tried to pre-record everything because I wanted a couple weeks to work on other things, because I have other things I'm doing, like cleaning my room, maybe. But yeah, Christy Abbey is my regular channel. That's where I do interviews, and the Star Trek thing will finally drop, if I can get the editing done, Tuesday. Thankfully Jesse and Steve Shives have graciously said
No,
they
you
would
should
do a little bit.
You should. I've never. You want to know something be interesting? I've never actually done a physically talk to Steve ever. It would be fun to do a three-way conversation between the three of us at some point.
Wait till you get the script. You'll see the script in a minute. You'll see the script soon. Trust me. And I trust you too, because you're funny and punched it out. But I mentioned the council in just a side note here, and I didn't think about it. And then when I had Vera on, I'm like, oh, let's do this. And she has one lawn. And I have it on film, or videotape. What the fuck are we actually using? Digital.
You have it in the can.
I have it in the can. There we go. But yeah, I have the 3 shows with Sophia Bota on her channel. Sophia Botha. That's 3 days a week now. Chris Abbey Music is going to be dropping 2 mini shows a week for the foreseeable future. Because I'm tired, because I really want to get back on stage, and it's driving me crazy. Wow, I'm doing a lot, and I just got interviewed by a radio station, so I'm like, that was sweet.
Yeah.
And I wish I could remember how to get you to that, but it was very wonderful. That's it. I think.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm apparently everywhere.
Yeah, and well, I mean, I try to be Ozma in the dark everywhere, so much so that I think I'm still the first thing that shows up on Google if you search for Ozma in the dark. Anyways, Jessie, where can people find you, Jessie Gender?
You can find me on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all the places at Jessie Gender. I do videos on Monday, Wednesday, and Friday at this point, with Friday being my big videos. And this coming Friday is a video I'm really excited about. It's an analysis of the works of Alex Garland. So Ex Machina, Devs, the TV show Devs, and Annihilation being sort of the main ones that I touch upon. So look forward to that. I'm also doing Twitch stuff. It's not regular right yet, though I hope in the next month or so I'll hammer out an actual regular schedule.
Yeah.
But it's kind of been I've been playing Monday and Tuesday nights at the moment on there, but it's sort of irregular on that front. And then the other things that I am doing, I think this has been announced right now. I'm doing a regular podcast with the aforementioned Council of Geeks, where we go through and rewatch Farscape. So that's going to be starting, I think, in the next week or two. So that's going to be fun. I've never seen Farscape, so
wait, you've never seen Farscape?
I've never seen Farscape.
It is a fun show.
I'm finding out. So we're watching that. We're watching it episode by episode, doing a podcast for every episode of it. So I'm going through it for the first time.
Well, thank you for saying, because I almost let it slip. That's why I had that long hesitation there. I was like, damn.
I think Council released the trailer for it on Thursday, so I think it's officially out there.
Okay.
And then the only other project that I'm doing at the moment that is sort of adjacent to all this is on Sundays. So tomorrow, or today, if you're listening to this, I do a Star Trek role-playing game RPG over on Lore Reloaded's channel, where I play a very promiscuous Andorian, though every single RPG that I play ends up with me being a very promiscuous character. There's something psychological going on there. So yeah, that's all the stuff. But if you want to keep up with all of it, Jessie Gender on YouTube is probably the best place.
I need to correct one thing in what I said. The Veer Wild Council of Geeks one is dropping Tuesday. The Star Trek one will be dropping Thursday. It's almost done. I'm just still finding stills that I need for it.
Well, yeah, and I mean, part of the reason I've had trouble with YouTube content is because I'm relatively new at it, and the more I do stuff, the quicker I can get stuff done, and then the more easy it'll be for me to schedule things. I'm still hanging there, but live long and prosper.
Live long and prosper.